Hi guys, this is the first in a series of videos I plan to do on nationalism in Japan. We're going to start today with the Meiji era. Nationalism is a key feature in the national study and may come up in the HSC. Let's start with a very quick geography lesson today. You can see Japan is made up of 4 main islands. The landscape of Japan is mostly rugged and mountainous with 66% forest. Farmland is a very small area in Japan and they have quite a large population. By the start of the 20th century, Japan felt it had outgrown its territory. The rise of nationalism and militarism and the perceived or real need to invade and colonize other countries can be linked back to these geographical considerations. Nationalism equals money, cash money. You would do well never to forget this link. So if we start in feudal Japan and the arrival of Matthew C. Perry in 1850s, Commodore Matthew C. Perry in the 1850s and the signing of the unfair Kanagawa Accord in 1854, this pushed Japan into the beginning of an astonishingly quick road to both modernization and industrialization. Remember, this couldn't have been done very easily without a strong nationalistic movement that went along with it. There's also a key link here with militarism. During the final days of the Tokugawa shogunate, the perceived or real threat of the West and of foreign encroachment led to an increased prominence to the development of nationalistic ideology. After the emperor's reinstatement, these ideas were pushed out even more. The Sonu Joi, or revere the emperor, expel the barbarians concept, was a major driving force in starting the Meiji Restoration and the contemporary push towards nationalism Japan was experiencing at the time. The Meiji Restoration and Constitution of 1889 defined allegiance to the state as a citizen's highest duty. While the Constitution itself contained a mix of political Western practices and traditional Japanese political ideas, the government's philosophy increasingly centered on promoting a Japanese social harmony and a sense of uniqueness to the Japanese people, or kokutai. Although there is certainly an element of culture in the growth of nationalism in Japan, I believe the biggest reason for the push can be linked to the base plan of economic growth and militarism. The massive difference in economic and military power between Japan and the Western colonial powers of the time was a great cause of concern for the Meiji leadership. The promoted motto, Fuyo Koike Aihe, enrich the country and strengthen the military, was a symbolic catchphrase of the Meiji period nationalistic policies. These were designed to provide the government with plenty of support to strengthen the strategic industries for the military. Only with a strong economic base could Japan afford to build a strong, modern military that could compete with the West. And only a strong economy, could be used to build this military. And with this, modern strength, Japan could force a revision of unequal treaties. All right, guys, so I have to say the word Bushido. Military nationalism in Japan was often known as Bushido, or the way of the samurai. Bushido was widespread in propaganda during the 19th and 20th century. The word is based on a code of beliefs and doctrines about the proper path of the samurai. And although it's rarely encountered in Japanese texts before the Meiji era, the ideology is definitely considered part of a legacy of feudal Japan. The Minister of Education also supported the integration of the samurai code into the education system. This really did plant the seeds for the militarism and nationalism of the Taisho and Showa era. After the end of the feudal system, the new military institutions of Japan were shaped along European lines, with Western instructors. Nevertheless, the codes of ancient Japan were themselves still intertwined with the standard models that they adopted from abroad. We see this so clearly during World War II, when Japanese officers leading modern troops with modern equipment still charge into battle with ancient samurai weapons. The incredible and at the time shocking victory displayed by the Japanese military in the Russian-Japanese War of 1905 was proof that Japan finally did have a modern army whose techniques, drills, and weapons of war differed very little from that of the Western powers. After the Meiji Restoration, the new imperial government needed to rapidly modernize the economy of Japan. The Meiji oligarchy and all those close to the emperor felt that this could be accomplished through a strong sense of national unity and cultural identity. State Shintoism was established as a far, far stronger counterweight to the ideologies of the West. Shintoism is the reverence of the emperor. In 1890, an imperial edict or law on education was issued. Students were required to ritually recite the oath, "We offer ourselves to the state and emperor." The practice of emperor worship was further spread by distributing imperial portraits for worship in the family home. Does this remind you of anything? I think it's really interesting too, guys, to note that Shinto was later used by the militarists as an important doctrine, central to their ideas to expand Japanese territory. The principal education emphasis on the Meiji period onwards was the great importance of traditional national values, religion and morality. The Japanese education system stated that the state was superior to the individual, but the emperor was superior to the state. So it's very, very important, guys, to link that with Japanese nationalism, that the state was actually, that served the emperor. The Japanese state modernized but preserved its national traditions. The attitude reinforced from 1905 was that Japan was, going to be a very powerful nation, at least equal to that of the Western powers. During the Showa period, the educational system was used for supporting the militarized state and preparing the future soldiers, much like, again, Hitler's Third Reich. The government published official textbooks for all levels of students with the reinforcement of the idea that cultural activities, seminars, etc., had to emphasize the uniqueness of Japanese people. This uniqueness of Japanese people can be absolutely linked to some of the fascist ideas of Hitler's Third Reich. The cultural courses were also supplemented with military and survival courses. These were, again used to militarize the students of Japan. And I think it's always, important to mention, guys, that particularly in Japan, militarism is always hot on the heels of nationalism. So, guys, apart from indoctrination in nationalism and the uniqueness of the Japanese character, children in schools received military drills. And drills in survival and first aid. These were taken even further by the Imperial Youth Federations, who would, create whole militias of, college students who are armed and trained to fight, the Imperial West. All these actions were said to be taken to ensure Japan's safety and protect against the evil West. So starting from about the Japanese Russian War of 1905, Japan adopted the moniker or the name, the Empire of Japan, and continued building their colonial empire. And as they built this empire, nationalism would remain a very important idea in their moving forward. So we're going to leave it there for this time, guys. We're going to start next video based on the Taisho period of nationalism. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you soon.